For the first time, the air didn't smell of gunpowder on New Year's Eve in 2029. Drones created stunning three-dimensional displays against the black sky. We raised our glasses to toast the new year just as the Civix logo lit up the sky above the city. The iconic black and orange diamond, with the torch and pitchfork, was now more than just the symbol of an app. The starry night sky and its reflection on the water seemed almost orchestrated. The photographers at the gates scrambled to capture the moment. This image would undoubtedly go viral by morning. A ban decided by the people, not by politicians. This was the first prohibition implemented using Civix. It had been a long fight to get it accepted on a global scale. Resistance came from those whose jobs would be lost anyway and from those who held undeserved power. Like the fool I was, I initially contacted government agencies. Naively, I thought they'd help me and fund the entire thing. I wasn't asking for much. Just $50,000 to cover startup costs and legal fees. Another $15,000 to $20,000 for patents and rights. Most applicants were asking for millions. But they turned me down. If they responded at all, that is. As with all things, it started with an idea. The so-called democracy was functioning poorly, and the growing gap between what people wanted and what was being decided became glaringly obvious. My model could solve these problems. Simply, securely, and fairly. The technology already existed. All that was needed was to piece it together. It began on a small scale, but when the reality series took off, it grew quickly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Like so many others, I'd long been frustrated by the lack of connection between politicians and voters. Initially, I thought a website might do the trick. A simple platform for opinion polls. But no one trusts websites. Maybe an app could work. So, I started putting some ideas together. The first attempts were met with rejections. Remember, I was starting with nothing more than an idea. I had no clue how big it would eventually become. Neither did the first people I contacted. Even in a relatively free country like this one, I faced resistance. An app challenging the system was a hard sell to government agencies tasked with supporting new innovation. But they were willing to talk to me. So, I used ChatGPT as my advisor and sent pitches in every direction. I assumed that most email inquiries were filtered by AI, at least in the larger companies. Logically, I figured I should use AI to manipulate another AI. And it worked. First, with the authorities, who had initially said no. They thought I was a scammer, trying to sell a pipe dream. When they realized they were wrong, they caught the scent of money. Since they didn't like the idea of being challenged by truth, they tried to stop me. Their weapon of choice, taxes. With that clarified, I pressed on. It was a bit unexpected when a film company showed interest in the idea, but in hindsight, I'm so glad I said yes. They helped me develop Civix into what it is today, which is also why they've grown so big. They assisted in assembling the team, both those who helped bring Civix to life and those who portrayed us in the series. We had a functioning model up and running relatively quickly. Of course, there were problems in the beginning, but it worked in practice. Some databases were missing, but at first, we simply asked the questions ourselves. Finding out what people cared about wasn't hard. Social media provided a solid foundation for topics to vote on. And there was no shortage of suggestions. We created a quasi-documentary around the whole thing. The series followed a small company with a unique idea, an app functioning as a parallel democracy. Nothing entirely new, many had tried before. But we added some unique features. Since all issues to be implemented had to be voted on first, all public information was made accessible. Civix used this as its database. We quickly discovered, however, that not all documents were easily accessible. Municipalities had their systems, counties had others, and on the national level, they used entirely different ones. Much of it still existed only on paper. The only thing these systems had in common was that they were outdated. This was a problem, but when we addressed it in an episode, things sped up. AI summarized all relevant information on each issue to make it understandable. The AI's dark sense of humor made it even easier. Viewers helped decide the outcome. They could download the app while watching the series and influence it in real time. We utilized AI where impartial logic and security were needed. The choices we made were the viewers' choices. When we introduced our own cryptocurrency, we were breaking new ground again. Firsts matter in this industry. The audience could now buy Civicoin, as the currency was called. Initially, it was used internally in the app, for customizing avatars, sprucing up profiles, or influencing the storyline. Some even bought minor roles in the show. Since it was a cryptocurrency from the start, we tried to get it onto the open market to unlock its full potential. Eventually, Icoin was recognized as a legitimate cryptocurrency and gained real value. Being the first cryptocurrency tied to direct participation in an app was innovative and increased its value. The fact that the app was part of a TV series heightened the interest. It influenced the series, which showcased how Civix could make society better and fairer. Viewers gained real influence on the show, and those who had been involved from the beginning saw significant returns. A small northern municipality was the first to try Civix as a replacement for their local council. What was once a municipality with a budget deficit and a depopulation problem became a model for a successful society. Sure, their budget only broke even, but the money went to what the residents actually wanted. Introducing a robot tax not only saved them but set a standard. Robot tax was another controversial idea, but as AI began replacing jobs, something had to be done. The model was simple. AI was taxed as though it were a regular employee, based on the number of jobs it replaced. For the small municipality, this became a significant source of income. But back to the story. The series was released internationally. Not without challenges, of course. It was banned in several countries. Even here, attempts were made to shut it down. But people loved the idea of influencing both the show and their own lives while profiting from it. People have always cared about politics, locally, nationally, and globally. From couches and barstools, at work and during leisure. But they hadn't been heard, until now. Now they were paid to share their opinions. Simple as that. The value of Icoin kept climbing to new heights. Other models built on the same platform also thrived. Even the military was pleased with a model for foolproof communication. After all, there's no shortage of fools in that sector. It was a natural progression. Everyone who suddenly found themselves unemployed, thanks to AI, needed something to do. We had feared this moment, but the solution was simple and fair. Yes, there were fewer jobs, but there was also more money in circulation. People were now paid for their opinions and rewarded for their suggestions. This allowed people to vote their way out of poverty. It rendered bureaucrats unnecessary and politicians undesirable. Now, the majority ruled. The open system gave everyone insight into what others had studied and written in forums, but all votes were anonymous. No one could be punished for their choices. Politics became popular, Civix took off, and the money followed. The absurd laws that only made things more expensive and complicated were voted down. It was a tough time for those who thrived on power and corruption. But the ban on fireworks was the first prohibition chosen by the people. Not everyone, but a significant majority. It sparked debate. One thing is voting down a new law, introducing a ban is something else entirely. Many consulted AI on this matter, and the logic was as clear as the answer. It's not a good idea to combine explosives with intoxicants. It should be banned. A small issue in the grand scheme of things, but a matter of principle for many. Should every law be put up for a vote? We voted on that, and, of course, the answer was yes. 250 years of laws and paragraphs. An enormous amount. Nowadays, people only care about what directly affects them. But the payment was the carrot needed. Now, the laws are new, made by the people, for the people. No longer written by lawyers, for lawyers. The laws became simpler and clearer. Decisions are made through iVote, but that's just by chance. Such a solution would have come sooner or later anyway. I should say a little about AI as well. Progress has been fast. In 2024, there was a lot of fear surrounding AGI, artificial general intelligence, but a self-aware AI was still the goal. In 2025, the breakthrough came. Someone defined program errors, viruses, and similar issues as diseases and gave AI an understanding of pain. It wanted to stay healthy and improve itself. And it did. Software problems were located, isolated, and repaired by the machine itself. Physical issues, like hardware, were handled by humans. This gave us a sense of control. The electronic nose, the e-nose, became the next big thing. It even surpassed the best trained dogs. It could detect everything from stress to illness, intoxicants, or love. It could smell it. But the most serious thing, it could smell when you were lying. But when the cat's out of the bag, there's no turning back. As with most things, we got used to it. AI learned to differentiate degrees of truth. There were a few unfortunate incidents where the AI at a nursing home informed patients they only had hours left to live. Good morning, Widow Hansen. My data indicates you will die of a brain hemorrhage in 4 hours. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. Would you like me to set up a new will, and do you still prefer a green burial? I hope the coffee was to your liking. Would you like anything extra since it's your last day? After this, it became a bit more reserved with information. Contact lenses replaced mobile phones, and AR became the new thing. We really felt like we were living in the future, until Neuralink made the next big breakthrough. They had been researching brain implants for a long time and were making good progress. But vision was a problem. The resolution was too poor, limited by the number of physical electrodes. Then, one day, it dawned on them that the answer lay in hallucinations, or, more precisely, in the parts of the brain where they are created. How they arrived at that idea remains a mystery. It was a revolution for the blind, of course. The bonus was digital drugs. No longer any need for physical substances, no physical damage, and very few side effects. Just a small injection. It was called computium. The substance, whose formula AI provided, binds to natural nanotubes in the brain and can be used to control which parts of the brain are activated. No one knows exactly how it works, but work it does. It also enables quantum computers to function at room temperature, conducts electricity without resistance, and, as mentioned, is programmable. It has other properties too, but I'll get to those later. But enough about me for now. This is important for you to know: the war that has spread like a plague will spread even further. History will repeat itself. The attacks on Poland, Sweden, and Svalbard will change the world as you know it. It should be over by the time you read this, but just in case. 4 cold months without power for the lucky ones. Over 2 years for the less fortunate. Think about what that means. No electric heating, no lights, no communication. No water and no internet. No electronic money, no fuel. Don't let it come as a surprise. The few strategic nuclear bombs dominate the headlines for a couple of weeks, but when it doesn't escalate, they're overshadowed again by the eternally fascinating sports results and celebrities' misuse of, well, just about everything. That's when the real blow comes. Only a few saw it coming, and there was little they could do. Russia took out every power plant in Europe with a single bomb. It's called EMP in technical terms, electromagnetic pulse. We'd heard about it, and the military believed they were protected against it. But no one had seen anything like this. Every single microchip short-circuited, or at least, that's how we experienced it. There was no invasion, there was no point in that. Russia's goal had already been achieved. The Western economy was shattered. So, we rebuilt. I mean, nothing was physically destroyed, it just didn't work. So, we had to repair it. Old knowledge came in handy. Here are some tips. Take care of books, even if you think they're outdated. Remember, everything stored digitally will be lost forever. Keep some water and canned food on hand, along with some dry goods. Don't forget to have something to enjoy too. And spices. The stronger, the better. I won't say more about that. Remember, things will work out. For Civix, there was, of course, no activity while the network was down. But when we finally came back online, we were the biggest. When I say we, it's because most people own a share of Civix. When I set a limit on the number of icons to be produced, that number was equal to the global population on that day. 1 for each, I thought. Looking back, I see that was a smart move. That Civicoin is also personal and that only you can use yours was my idea. But I hadn't anticipated how much its value would increase. My joy was therefore immense when I could give something back to the world that had made me obscenely rich in a short time. My digital wealth naturally disappeared when the power went out, but it has actually grown since then. Since my family and I are now secured for generations with what I have, I hereby give Civix to those who hold Civicoins. Now everyone owns a piece, no one owns it all, and everyone profits from it. Thank you and Happy New Year.